Let's do it. Another episode here of Goz On The Go. All the sports talk you need from the week in a little less than 40 minutes. Before we get into the sports talk, we got to tell you who makes this stuff possible. Our partners, the people we want you to support. If you enjoy Godzilla Media, Goz On The Go, all your favorite podcasts, make sure to check them out too. Enjoy some of these podcasts across the platforms. It happens because of great people like the people over at Mohawk Honda. 2 months left here in 2021. What are you doing to prepare yourself for 2022? Are you ready for the winter months? Are you going to take advantage of the Kelly Blue Book offer? We hope you do. Where if you drive out to Glenville, New York, you can walk off that lot in a new ride and with potentially money in your pocket. That's what they can do for you at Mohawk Honda. Just had it happen in my life. My mom searched for the best deals across upstate New York. She found her best deal in Mohawk Honda. Shout out to Cam McKenna, Greg Johnson, Lindsey Harrod, and the entire crew that helped her out that process of finding a new ride. They've helped me. Pilot sitting out in the driveway right now. Best vehicle I've ever had in my life. Nothing truly would make me happier if I get an email, a text, a call from somebody that says, hey, guys, we heard it from Godzilla Media. We heard it here on Goz On The Go. This is the best vehicle I've had in my life. I'm glad I took your advice and went to Mohawk Honda. Do it now. Drive over to Glenville. Follow them on social media. Make that your first step to find out some of the new 2022s, the inventory, and everything that's on the way for you that you can have as your first treat for the holiday season. It is Mohawk Honda in Glenville, New York, where they always go out of their way to please you. And we got to give love to our friends over at Johnstone Supply in Troy. The fall is here. Can feel the hoodies coming out, right? The weather's getting a little bit colder and colder. How are you taking care of your home right now? Are your HVAC needs taken care of? If they're not, maybe you need an upgrade to your furnace, your heating system, air filters, whatever you need in your home. Johnstone Supply in Troy has been helping people in the capital region since 1945. Think about that experience that's going to be on your side. Close to 8 decades of experience here in the capital region. Now you can have it happen for you. 6th Avenue in Troy. People that are experienced in the business. We call him Soch, man. The best mustache in the capital region. Now he's looking like that Virginia closer. Our guy Tom's going to help you if you give him a call. Kev, James, maybe George will be in-house. He's had so many different experiences with what you need in your home to make sure it's going well. Even if you live outside of the capital region, call them for advice to make sure you're doing the right things this November and this December. You've already got the hookup right now. It's Johnstone Supply in Troy. Give him a call, 518-272-5922. 518-272-5922. If you listen to Levack and Goz too, you know this. The nice sensual reads when we talk about Johnstone Supply in Troy. If you have that voice, I'm sure Tom will call me. And I'm sure you guys will have to laugh. The nice icebreaker out of the gates to ask some questions that you might not be familiar with your heating system and more. It's Johnstone Supply in Troy, looking to continue to help you as they've done for decades across the capital region and upstate New York. One more time for the number, 518-272-5922. Check them out on Facebook as well, Johnstone Supply, Troy, NY. Now, on to this week's episode of Goz On The Go. The Atlanta Braves are World Series champions, and for Capital Region sports fans, you already know, for upstate New York sports fans, Ian Anderson, the pride of Shen High School, one of the biggest high schools here in all New York, is now a World Series champion. From being a top 5 pick in Major League Baseball's draft to living up to the hype to having an historic game taken away by his manager, Brian Snitsker. Whatever. They won the championship. Ian Anderson's happy. The family's happy. Fans in New York are happy. Atlanta, what a story. Less than a 1% chance if you ask the wagerers out there about how the Braves were going to finish in mid-summer. And now in November, they lift up the World Series championship. We're missing a bunch of guys too. Kuno, Suno. We can run through the list of the other players who are impactful. The story is that Atlanta, a city that is now in that discussion as the ultimate chokers because of what the Falcons have done. And the 90s Braves, if you're like me and you remember those 90s Braves, how often they were so good, and they only got that one World Series championship. That Atlanta choke is now slowly starting to drift away, with Trae Young and the Hawks playing really well, with Anderson and his teammates lifting up the World Series trophy, the Commissioner's trophy, Hank Aaron MVP, all the storylines and everything else. Great stuff for the Atlanta Braves, right? What's the most common question? How can they do it again? Is it a dynasty? How much can this team do to their legacy and add to this? Atlanta's always going to be good. The NL East is good. Philadelphia signed Bryce Harper. They wanted to be competitive. We know Steve Cohen and the Mets. Marlins are no good. But The Nationals have also won a World Series recently within the last 5 years, so it's a competitive division. So sure, if you're a Brave fan, get excited. You might have some more competitive teams and playoff teams on the way. But that's kind of where we have to stop this baseball discussion, and this might be the last time we talk about baseball for the next month because of what's on the way. More than likely. 1 month. The Major League Baseball Players Association, the PA, and the owners have to figure out a new collective bargaining agreement. If they don't get it done by those first 2 days in December, a lockout's on the way. The hot stove you heat up about trades, transactions, signings, and more, it's not going to happen. Those days in December where you're just looking for football action on the weekends is not going to be dominated by baseball talk and what could change instead of lockout. So you would think that the easy thing is you've got $11 billion. Can't you just split it up evenly? And it may not even be so much about the money. And it seems easy to say sitting here talking to you about how to split up $11 billion. But it really might not be that because common sense you would hope would just take over. That greed would not be that big. And the owners and players would figure out locking out will prevent all of us from making more cash. Let's not be idiots about this. Instead, it's about the future of what baseball could be. How much money can be made. Remember, these owners are extremely smart businessmen. They don't look for the year 2022. They want to have that investment in buying a baseball team benefiting themselves the most in 2027 and 2032. So how can baseball rake in the most money possible? Is it a television deal? Is it streaming rights? Is it adding teams? Is it lowering the minor league system? By lowering the minor league system, I mean cutting costs, not paying players who will never make it to the big leagues, and we've seen some of those cuts already happen. One of the early ways for baseball, like any other business, to spend less to make more. I wish I had the great, perfect answer. And I will fully admit that there were times during this baseball playoff time where I'm like, this is so slow. I got to get on my phone. I can't watch this. Even World Series games were going so long. 10:45, I felt like the old man Levack was busting my chops about it, saying, like, what do you got to do? I'm like, I feel like the old dad who can't stay up to midnight and watch a game in the 7th or 8th inning. So we go to these questions, right? How to make baseball more interesting, and what do you? I feel like it's such a tired storyline, but that is the bigger debate that's going to happen. Money's easy. People are going to be rich. You want to be more rich? You want to be more greedy? If that's the reason they lock out, they're not that dumb, are they? That the fan bases won't be able to pick up what they're doing to figure out that the ultimate greed. You'd think you'd learn from the mid-90s lockout and the strike and everything else. So it feels as if, and maybe I'm too naive on this conversation to think that the money won't be the step. It's about really smart people figuring out, will Major League Baseball, after this decision comes between the owners and the players, be in a better spot for the future than they are right now? What's that answer? Shortened season? Pace of play? More home run derbies? More gimmicks? If you've got the right answer, please tweet Rob Manfred, tweet Tony Clark, tweet me at Tom Goz, TOMGUZZ. That's the bigger issue ahead. You've got to have an innovative mind, someone to do something for the sport of baseball that puts it in a better place, both for fans, for younger fans, for television audiences, for sponsors, and everything else than it is right now. That's the true debate that's going to happen over the next month. What can you come together to decide on that puts the spot of baseball in a better place for the future? The Mike White experience has begun for New York Jets fans. This is the best NFL storyline of the week. I'm not being biased for New York fans. Look, the Giants game was tough to watch. Bills fans, you're going to have more moments this season where you have times to brag. You won, but it's not going to be the game you go back and look at the 2021 season. This is about the Jets this week. Mike White, who we mocked and said, this guy's never been even on the field before, gets in the field when Zach Wilson gets hurt the week previous. Then goes out and beats the top team tiebreaker-wise in the AFC, the Cincinnati Bengals. Leads the NFL in passing in 1 week. Has his stuff sent to the Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio for that miraculous performance. And all of a sudden, Jets fans have that wonderful thing in sports. Hope. My guy, Pooch, for some of you know him in Central New York, Syracuse. Nick in Syracuse, a caller to our show way back in the past. Huge Jet fan. He shot me a text. I have no problem sharing this. He goes, is Mike White the guy? When does he become the guy? Do Jets fans look at Mike White and finally say, he's our quarterback? Zach Wilson, like any other quarterback who's a rookie, most will struggle then succeed early in their career. We've been so spoiled by some other quarterbacks who have been so great to start off their careers that we forget there is a learning curve. And Zach Wilson didn't play for Bama or Michigan or Clemson. He played for BYU, an independent school who beat up some bad teams out in the West. So Wilson gets hurt and Mike White's the guy. How long does it last? It's a fair question. What if he continues to play well? What if the Jets start to win games? The problem is there's too much invested in Zach Wilson. A top 2 pick in the NFL draft, a first-round pick, the contract, and more. He is your guy. Now, someone's going to flip it around and say, Goz, what about Josh Rosen? The Josh Rosen experience is so rare to ever happen in the history of the NFL. The whole thing with the Arizona Cardinals is so rare. To draft a 5'9", and put that in air quotes if we're going to believe that's Kyler Murray's height, to go back-to-back quarterbacks in round 1, to have the same GM, just a different head coach who had a losing record in college and the pros, and you drafted Kyler Murray. Zach Wilson's not going to go anywhere. Zach Wilson, when he gets healthy, will have the opportunity to get back in the field because, unfortunately, Jet fan, I'm not as optimistic to believe that this Jet team's all of a sudden a playoff team. Now, if the Jets were fighting for a playoff berth, maybe we're going to have a different discussion here come later in the month in December, but the competition on their schedule, the Jets will still be an underdog. But something could happen with Mike White. He could get traded. He could get moved. The Jets could get some draft picks, and Zach Wilson could get better and get tested for maybe the first time in his pro career. And hell, he could go back to BYU there. He's really tested. It's interesting to see how good Mike White can be. The Jets have a ways to go. Hell, we could go back and listen to this podcast, and White could stink this week and say, remember when we all got worked up over that Bengal game? Jet fan, how many times have you fallen for it? Remember when you got worked up over Teddy Bridgewater in the preseason? Remember how well Mark Sanchez started his career as a quarterback for the Jets? Remember how many Jet fans wanted to buy the Sam Darnold gear before he even took a snap as the quarterback for the team? Jet fan, you love getting excited. You love having hope. That's why people love to talk about Jet fans, because they know that moment at some time is going to come, hopefully in their lifetime, where that quarterback does put them over the top and they do win. To quote our guy Trav on the Trav and Rigney show on Godzilla Media, pump the brakes. It's exciting that Mike White's there. But Jet fan, you of any other NFL fan base, you've passed the Browns, you've passed the Bengals, you've passed the Lions, of all these teams that have struggled like you, of the excitement level. It's almost like that stripper at the strip club who starts saying hi, hello, and is nice to you. You feel like you've fallen in love and you're not going to get baited. You know this one's different. Don't do it to yourself. Let Mike White play. Hope Zach Wilson's better. And hope that the future, in similar fashion to our Major League Baseball discussion we just had, we hope the future is made right for the Jets, just like Major League Baseball. I love the expression that Michael Wilbon and Tony Kornheiser have been using for years on the show, pardon the interruption, ya boy, ya girl. I love that because it really speaks to sports fans. And sometimes, and maybe for others more than sometimes, you're by yourself on an island. You're defending a school, a coach, an athlete, a play that maybe your friend group, your family group doesn't believe is any good. Whether it's simple as being a Yankee versus Red Sox fan, a Giant versus Jet fan, the rivalries that can happen in sports that make this thing so much fun. There are times you might be by yourself, or there's times you're going to take the unpopular opinion, and you've got to make sure you can back your stuff up and tell people why you believe that. There is no other New York athlete since I moved out here to the capital region, and you know this wherever you're listening, that Western New York, it's all about the Bills and the Sabres. Central New York, it's about Syracuse basketball and Syracuse football, which we'll get to in a minute. You come east, it's about the New York teams. It's upstate city. You're talking Giants and Jets and Yankees and Mets and Rangers and Islanders and Knicks, and that's what it looks like in Albany. A lot of fans that are from the city who live here in upstate New York, and there is no other athlete that have had to defend more and taken more heat on defending than Odell Beckham Jr. Why did I defend Odell Beckham Jr. so often? Because I looked at the New York Giants roster and said, guys, you're not better without him. And it was true for years. We got to get rid of Odell Beckham Jr. He's the problem. He's the cancer. Nobody wanted to blame Eli Manning, a Hall of Famer, or the all-time great Giants, but nobody wanted to point the finger and say, you know what? Hey, maybe Eli is not that good. Maybe it's Eli. Nobody wanted to blame Tom Coughlin. Nobody wanted to blame the coach. Odell Beckham was always the easiest, the most polarizing, the person to point the finger at and say the reason this offense isn't better is because of Odell. And when you think about that out loud now, reflecting back, how silly, how wrong of a take that is. The wide receiver is not going to win or lose you games unless they're coughing up the football or dropping catches in the end zone, which Odell Beckham Jr., you got to dig deep to find that if it's ever happened for the Giants. But because he talked and had the crazy hair and danced and peed on the football, acted on the field, people blamed Odell. And I had to continue to remind Giant fan, if you're looking for a playmaker on offense because all your guys keep getting injured, both running backs and wide receivers, maybe you shouldn't have traded Odell Beckham Jr. And go back, type it in right now, pause the podcast. Go look and see what the Giants got in return for Odell Beckham Jr. You're going to laugh at the player. Who? What? I would tell you who it is, but I could give you like 5 names. And you wouldn't be able to pick it out because it's just obscure players they got back in return. Now, with all that being said, I'm done doing that. The Odell Beckham Jr. stuff, I'm done. I'm over. I've defended you long enough. It's truly difficult to explain the level of stupid Odell Beckham Sr. and Odell Beckham Jr. have gone to with this social media I want to get traded nonsense that's happened over the last week. If you missed the story, Odell Beckham Sr., some Texas football legend that he is, went to social media and Instagram and posted these cuts and clips of all the times his son has been open and Baker Mayfield didn't throw him the football. What are you doing? How does that help your team? How in any ways, with this team right now, the Cleveland Browns, Baker Mayfield, love him, hate him, if he's not your guy, he's your guy. He's playing with his shoulder hanging off of his arm right now. Torn labrum. Any day Baker could call the medical facility and say, you know what, I'm done. I need surgery. This isn't going to get better. I'm calling it a season. But Baker's fighting through it on his non-throwing shoulder. You're down to your third-string running back. You got a third-string running back. Myles Garrett's playing like one of the best players in the NFL on the defensive side of football. He might break the single-season sack record. Baker's giving it his all. Jarvis Landry's fighting back from injury. I know he's buddies with Odell Beckham Jr. So what does Odell decide to do? Bitch and complain. No. It is not the time to do it. Odell, don't you remember when the Browns traded for you? The people like Ken Carman for CBS 92.3 The Fan down there in Cleveland and others were partying in the streets, celebrating, calling it a Super Bowl that the Browns were going to be better than they've ever been before. And you were fine in your first season for Cleveland. Getting not in the end zone that much. But now you're going to act like you're the star and you're the reason why Cleveland's not winning more? Odell, you've played in 6 games this season. You've caught less than 250 yards this season before that. Less than 400 yards in 7 games. And even this season, you played the best in Cleveland. You caught less than 5 touchdowns. Odell Beckham Jr. has not had more than 7 touchdowns in a season since 2016. And we're acting like he needs the football. He's just not good. That's what it came down to. I can't sit here and continue to defend Odell Beckham Jr. like he's this impactful player and right move by Kevin Stefanski for flat out kicking him off the team. Oh, you're going to complain before the trade deadline that we should trade you. Do you know why we can't trade you? Because nobody wants you. Because you're not good enough. If you're going out there getting 1,400 yards, double-digit touchdowns, we can find a spot for you to get some value back. But I just told you since 2016 statistically, Odell Beckham Jr. 2016 is 5 years ago. He hasn't been good in 5 years. But he still thinks he is? He thinks he should be more of a focal point of the Brown offense? He hasn't been healthy. It is a level of irrational thought that is truly hard to comprehend. That who was it? Twitter followers? Drake? LeBron? Who the hell told Odell Beckham Jr. that he was the reason why Cleveland wasn't better because they're not getting him the football enough? Who on a sports talk show in Cleveland said, you know why the Browns are falling off? It's not because Baker's hurt or that Chubb or Hunter hurt. It's because Baker's missing Odell Beckham Jr. with open throws. Nobody's saying that. He's off the team. They actually don't need him. It's amazing I'm thinking about that now 3 years removed from where I could have told you that Cleveland was going to make a run and there was Jarvis and everybody on the cover of Sports Illustrated. They don't need Odell Beckham Jr. Who does? Vegas? You think Vegas wants it after the Antonio Brown situation? Vegas doesn't need that anymore. The John Gruden, they don't need enough of that drama anymore, okay? They got enough going on in Vegas. They don't need him. Tampa doesn't need him. Tampa's taken on personalities before. Who the hell needs him? Odell Beckham Jr. better be careful. I don't know what team's going to go chasing after Odell Beckham Jr. anymore. And for the Cleveland Browns, this is over. This is done. You don't have to take him back because you don't need him on your team anymore. He has not been that type of player in 5 years. I love college basketball. For college basketball fans, I'm going to do my best on the Goz On The Go to give some insight to the college basketball landscape. Some of you know this, some of you don't. Just worth reminding people. College basketball, right there, 2 to 3 my entire life is my favorite sport. Always loved college football. It's my favorite sport. NFL sandwich right in between, but I've gone to far more college basketball games in my life than I've gone to NFL games. College football is right there, but because of the bigger schedule, I'm sure college basketball is not too far off. And why am I a college basketball fan? Syracuse, New York, Orange fans, you're probably listening to this one. Interested in my thoughts on this upcoming Syracuse basketball season. I am far more excited than it seems to be these national experts and preseason prognosticators about the Orange. So you can go to the Sports Illustrateds, the CBSs, the ESPNs, and the national outlets to see where they believe Syracuse is going to finish. And going into this, I thought Syracuse would be considered a top 5 team in the ACC. Look, we can go through the Blue Bloods every single time, right? Duke, North Carolina, Louisville. I know Virginia and Florida State have worked their ways into the conversation now as a top team in the ACC, and rightfully so. Virginia's a national champion, and Florida State's had some nice runs under Leonard Hamilton. Syracuse is almost universally picked as a 7th best team in the ACC, which will be good enough for them to be a 68 selected team in the NCAA March Madness tournament. But I feel like they're better than that. And maybe it's just because I've been watching the Syracuse team beat up on teams like Pace and Lemoyne D2 schools. But do people realize how good Syracuse can shoot the basketball? Both Boeheims, Jim Boeheim, the son, Buddy Boeheim, his brother, Cole Swider, Joseph Girard III, they got guys who just want to bomb it. Now, if Jesse Edwards has got to stand underneath the basket and just get rebounds, maybe that's his thing. Block shots, get long in the zone, get rebounds, and let these guys hit absolute bombs. Syracuse basketball fans, this is why it's been so long that you can say it's going to be a fun team to watch, an exciting game, because they are never going to be out of it. You're going to be watching the first half, and Syracuse is going to be down by 9 or 12, and maybe they have some turnovers, and maybe they're just not putting it down. But if they get hot from beyond the arc, I will put them up against anybody in the country shooting it like they've been shooting it in the preseason. It just smells like a Syracuse team, right, that's going to frustrate you in November, December, get to conference play, beat the teams they're supposed to, an upset or two that they didn't see coming for a Carolina or a Duke. You get knocked off by a bottom team that you got cold against. You get to the NCAA tournament as a 10 seed or maybe even a 6 or a 7, and you make it to the second weekend. Isn't it like that? Isn't it feel like that's what it's going to be for Syracuse? Joseph Girard III, what is his role going to be? I just mentioned him as a shooter, but there's only one basketball. With Swider and the Boeheims launching it, is Girard going to have to be the passer and facilitate? What's Amir Torrance's role going to be? The transfer from, I like to say he's not from Marquette. I like to say he's from my former preschool. It's now known as the Syracuse Academy of Science. Sacred Heart Preschool, baby. What's Torrance's role going to be? Is Benny Williams just flat out too young? He looks like he's a teenager. I would love to see him have more of an impact this season, but he just looks just flat out too young for this Syracuse team right now. But if you are a Syracuse fan, hopefully you're as excited as I am for this season. Now, with all those things being said about them, likely getting to the NCAA tournament, likely doing the thing that they've done for, 5+ years now and breaking up brackets and just shooting people and people can't figure out the zone, I feel far more confident in this take than I do about the 2022 team. If everybody stays together, and we're going to talk about transfers here in about a minute, about Capital Region teams. If everybody stays together on the Syracuse basketball team, this team will be poised to not just be a top 5 team in the 2022-2023 season, but everything is lining up for that team, the 2023 Syracuse Orange basketball team, to win the program's second national championship. That's how Boeheim's going to go out. With his 2 sons. Haven't we talked about and rumored this for years that Boeheim wants to coach till he's like 80 or 90? That's the way he would go out. With a national championship, with his 2 sons, with the eligibility of COVID and everything else, piece it together, find a way to make it happen. Everybody goes out at once. The Boeheims go out and win the national championship in 2023. And if this team can get to the Sweet 16 again and have everybody come back and make one last run at it, that's what that team is poised to be. Good team. Above good, second weekend team with the Shooters, and potential national champions in 2023. I told myself over and over and over again, do not group UAlbany and Siena. Do not group UAlbany and Siena when you do your college basketball preview. I made it a point that I wanted to give both programs a significant amount of space for a few minutes to talk about the adds, the additions, and how they were different and what it looked. I got to this point. I have to group them up. I can't. Great Dane fans and Saint fans, this is the best and easiest way to sum it up. Goz On The Go. Both programs are heading in different direction when it comes to actually talent on the court. Siena and UAlbany, as of this taping, and I have to do it like that because the season hasn't tipped off yet, and who knows if any more roster changes are on the way. As of this taping, both programs have 9 different players to their team. 9! Most college basketball Division I rosters have 15 players on scholarship. 9? Half your team is a different style, a different player, different eligibility, transfer, freshman, first year. We have to use those terms now because how many freshmen are going to play in redshirt and everything. Both programs are going to have to change some things. We'll just start with Siena, though. The Saints, you want to talk about a program that's unfairly been hit by COVID. And I'm talking about the success of the program and how differently we'd view them on a national scale. In 2020, in March, Siena was a top seed, and they were poised to win the MAC. If Siena ran the table, won the MAC, they were likely going to play Kansas. They may not have beaten the Jayhawks, but they were going to test them and get the national spotlight that the program needed. COVID hits. Siena doesn't get that opportunity. 2021 rolls over. Siena plays less than 20 games. Siena, again, finishes in first place in the MAC in the regular season. They get bumped in the quarterfinals by Rick Pitino's Iona team. Again, it's Rick Pitino and that team getting the national headlines. Pitino puts them in the tournament just like Tim Cluse used to and everything else, but Siena doesn't get the credit. 2 seasons in a row, the Saints could have been talked about as a team that broke through and Coach Carm and everybody else, but unfortunately, because of canceled games, Siena's not in that spot. No Jalen Pickett this season. Who are going to be the impact players? I wish I could break it down for you and tell this guy's going to get enough minutes and this guy's going to lead in scoring. I don't know if Coach Carm knows that answer, or even the most diehard Siena Saint fan knows that answer, because this is what November is in December. To find out who your impact players are, how the transfers adjust, how the first-year guys find their ways into minutes in the lineup. You might have an idea, but that's not fair to me to find out right now who it's going to be. And the same can be said for UAlbany. The difference for UAlbany, it's the UAlbany Great Danes without Coach Will Brown. 2 decades. The guy who built up the Great Dane program, the Peter Hooley shot, the threatening to almost beat that UConn team back in the mid-2000s. That's always been Coach Brown, but now he moves on. He's now the head coach for the Albany Patroons, so he's staying local. He's still coaching basketball. But it's Dwayne Killings who is the head coach now for UAlbany basketball. I think it's at least worth noting this. Why the hiring of Coach Killings is so strange when you look at the scale of college basketball. If you're not familiar with him, Coach Killings comes from Marquette, which doesn't seem like that big of a deal. Guys, who cares? He's from Marquette. Well, remember this, the timeline. Will Brown, let go, not re-signed, whatever term we want to use here, in March of 2021. Coach Killingsley officially announced as the head coach of UAlbany on March 17th. On March 19th, Steve Wojciechowski is fired as the head coach at Marquette. So help me out here. Marquette believed that the coaching staff and the head coach were not good enough to lead the program for the future. But somehow, Coach Killings got hired at UAlbany. Think about that for a second. That if he had stayed for 3 more weeks, he would have been fired as an assistant coach. Whoever brings in the Marquette staff is going to likely bring in their own guys. So he could have been out of a job. So as an assistant coach, he got fired, but didn't really get fired because the guy who was his former boss got fired. So he avoided getting fired and instead he got promoted. But Marquette basketball was bad. But because they were so bad that the head coach got fired, he got promoted to head coach. It's confusing, right? Now, he's had more in his career than just that stint at Marquette, UConn, and others. But just a hiring on a level when you compare it to other hires across any sport, whether it be college or professional, seems to not make sense from what it came off of. He's got to have the same challenges that other coaches have in their first year, especially with the transfer portal. What guys are they bringing in? Who do you have Albany have on the roster? Who thought they're going to be an impact player? It's going to be like 2 to 3 years before UAlbany's good. UAlbany has not had a winning record in a few seasons. Even under Coach Brown, they have not been the same program that they were with Peter Hooley and those tournament runs and everything else. So UAlbany's got a further way to go than Siena does. You hope Siena can go back to back to back and be a top team in the MAC for how bad that conference has been. And Patino has lit something down there on the national stage, but I don't see Siena or UAlbany making a run at the conference championship or getting March Madness. Syracuse, the best shot of the upstate New York teams to get back to the dance. UFC 268 this weekend, Madison Square Garden. Canelo Alvarez versus Caleb Plant in boxing. That might be the issue to start off right there, right? Why is Canelo Alvarez fighting the same weekend as a huge mega fight at Madison Square Garden? Boxing, man. Sometimes they just do things. The arrogance level is so high. It's like, why not just do it another weekend? I know nobody wants to back down and say, we're not the best. This guy's not the best, everything. Just make a good business decision. Let Fight Fan be able to do both. Fight Fan is not going to cough it up for both. Either you're getting Alvarez Plant or you're getting UFC 268. Canelo Alvarez and Plant's a bad dude, undefeated champ. I want him to win. You've heard it on past podcasts where I've talked about Canelo Alvarez, where he is not as polarizing as other boxers. They thought he would be the guy that is fighting would do the talking. He has not been that one. He's had a nice career. He's going to go to the Hall of Fame. Some people love Canelo Alvarez, just not my style of guy. And I know Mexican fighters are some of the most entertaining boxers, and they've talked about that in the pregame hype of what it means. I should say pre-fight hype of what it means. Not interested. Interested in UFC 268. Nice little note here. In Madison Square Garden, I was so fortunate to cover not one but 2 events in the UFC's history at Madison Square Garden. Conor McGregor, the champ. The return of GSP. I was there for both of those events. Really cool stuff to be a part of big fight night at Madison Square Garden. Now there's rumors floating around, by the way, too, that Chandler Gaethje is going to lead off the pay-per-view fight. I'm all about that. That's the big thing I want to see. They're going a little WWE, AEW style with that. No wrestling talk this week because we're flying through the stories. But if you tell me each pay-per-view gets the second best fight of the night and then the main event at the end, that's how you keep people interested. Are you kidding me? Nobody can go grab the pizza, take some fights off. How often have you been at a fight night with somebody and somebody goes, hey, when are the good fights starting? Hey, when's the big fight going to happen? Why is there fights before this? No. Gaethje Chandler, if that's the rumor, that's going to open up the pay-per-view. That's going to be amazing. And Usman Covington, if you need a place, by the way, to watch UFC 268, you're not making it out to Madison Square Garden, Hooters is the place for you. Go enjoy the UFC fights there. Usman Covington had the opportunity to talk to Kamaru Usman back in February 2020. Blown away. Was not a fan of his. Thought his style was a little boring. Thought his overall charisma in the ring could have been used. He was entertaining. He was fun. He was smiling. I asked him if I could wear his hat, and he said no. But I became a fan of him because he was a fighter that was doing all those things, that knew how to play the game, had entertainment and everything else. Covington plays the heel role, right? He played against, he loved former President Donald Trump. He wanted to stir people up. He wanted to be the bad guy. He wanted to be the one that got the attention, and everybody rooted against him. He owned the booze. Usman's going to beat him. I don't know. What's coming to have to get? One in lucky shot, out wrestle him, put him on the ground. Usman's strength, he is so versatile across the board. He can do everything better than Covington. Covington can't beat him. How? One lucky punch to the jaw? gets him down with a big move, he's got to go for a swing and just knock. Usman is the guy. With all different people moving around the UFC now, you want to talk about, if not the best pound-for-pound person in the sport, I've become a Kamaru Usman fan because of how good he's been inside the octagon. This card is stacked. Get to Hooters. Levack and I are going to be there on Friday, this upcoming Friday from 4 to 6. College football fans, I know some of you have been like, guys, what do you think about the rankings this week? We'll talk about the rankings. We'll talk more about some of the stories you couldn't get to on this, but UFC 268 cannot wait. If you're a boxing fan, you love Alvarez Plant. I'm rooting for Plant to be this new face, new story, new personality in the boxing game. Undefeated. He'll test Alvarez, but I'm not bold enough to pick him. But give me Usman, give me Alvarez for my picks this weekend in the fight game, which leads to this when we're talking about picks. And that's my 0 for 8 performance last week. You know how hard it is to go 0 for 8? An incredible feat. That's right. I'm trying to just brag about going 0 for 8. That's remarkable. 0 for 4 on my NFL picks with the wager spread. 0 for 4 on my college picks. So do what you want with these picks, as I always say every week. But here's what's happened now. These picks are now sponsored. That's right. You see it right on our YouTube side. The picks on Goz On The Go are brought to you by Jared Lozier of Northeastern Insurance. If you're looking to save money on your business, your car, or more, call Jared today. 518-956-3753. Northeastern Insurance, Jared Lozier. Here's what you call Jared and do. You call this number, 518-956-3753, and ask him, why are you sponsoring Goz's picks? He just went 0-8. And you as a smart business guy, you thought this was a good idea, but I know what Jared will tell you. He goes, if you bet against Goz, if you go 8 for 8, you pocket that money and I will be the person to help you to figure out where you're going to invest it, where you're going to have those funds go for the future, how you're going to make more money than ever before on betting against Goz. Thank you, Jared. That's the type of stuff you need. Northeastern Insurance, there's your guy. Promise me this. If you go 8-0, doing my picks, a.k.a. betting for with me or against with me, then you call Jared, 518-956-3753, or email him. Just leave him a note. One off of Goz's picks, thank you. Jared, Jaredl @nemail.com. One more time, Jaredl @nemail.com. Leave him a nice title message. One off of Goz's picks. Whatever it is. You don't have to tell him if you went 5-3, 6-2, 7-1. You bet for me, you bet against me. Jared Lozier, Northeastern Insurance, your guy for the end of the year to take care of your finances, to invest the right way, and somebody you can trust when you're looking at that experience. All right, let's do it. No more stalling. Picks on the year. College, 18-23, 18-23. NFL, 17-14. Combined with the NFL and college this year, my picks, welcome to mediocrity, 35-36 combined. All right, college picks. Here's what I like this week. We're starting on a Friday night, baby. Boston College absolutely stinks, but this line also does as well. The Eagles are getting ready for the red bandana game. If you don't know what that's all about, Google that. It's an amazing story, one of the great stories in college football history with BC. Friday night at Boston College. They are a 3.5-point dog to Virginia Tech. Give me the Eagles, who cannot find any type of offense, but they get a boost in an emotional game that's going to be there at Boston College. Both 4-4 teams. I'll take the home team getting points. And also, Boston College's offense has been so bad since their quarterback got hurt. Last 4 games, 6-14, 7-13. They should be at least a 9.5-point underdog. The line doesn't make sense. Give me Boston College at home in that game. Go Eagles, even though Syracuse fans want to root against BC so they don't steal that Fenway Park bid. I just want Wake to win now. I'm betting 2 ACC games this week. Wake Forest is undefeated. Can we give the Demon Deacons some love? Let's let Wake beat North Carolina. Wake can put up points. North Carolina's been one of the most disappointing teams in the country this season. Hartman's a really good quarterback. Mac Brown's a really good coach, but North Carolina's continued to disappoint. People are begging you to take North Carolina. This seems like it's not an upset because Carolina's favored in this game. Wake Forest can get it done. Also, the crooked ACC officials may now be on Wake Forest's side. Give me the Demon Deacons outright winners. So I got BC outright winner. I think taking with the points, but I like 2. There we go. You know what? Let's keep this going, though. BC money line, Wake Forest money line. I've never done this in Goz On The Go. I'm taking Tennessee this week. Tennessee, 1.5 dogs on the road to Kentucky. Kentucky's got that 18 next to them. If you've been watching college football this past few weeks, if you get ranked, all of a sudden it's a burden, it's a shock, it's a scare because the ranked teams continue to go down. Tennessee finally figured out their quarterback. Josh Heupel's a really good coach. That's all it is. They got a quarterback in Hooker. They've got a quarterback. They're that close. They almost landed Joe Burrow years ago. Tennessee is a quarterback away, and I was impressed how they played against Alabama. That game was tighter early than people thought. I like the Vols. Oh, God. Cannot believe I said that. Game I like the most in college this week, Baylor TCU. Baylor's ranked. I know I just told you about those ranked teams. Sometimes it doesn't make sense with these upsets happening. TCU fired Gary Patterson. Gary Patterson has a statue on campus of how great he is. He built TCU up from a mid-major to a team that was playing in the Rose Bowl and finished one season the number 2 team in the country after the BCS and everything else and all the college football nonsense. The TCU didn't get in as an undefeated team. TCU is going to get crushed. Baylor needs this. Baylor's in the mix for a Big 12 championship while TCU's players are heading to the transfer portal. TCU is going to get buried at home against Baylor. All right, those are my picks again. One more time. I like Boston College, Wake Forest, Tennessee, all on the money line. Toss Baylor in there. There's your 4-team parlay for you. 3 money liners at Baylor. All right, let's flip it to the NFL. A little bit more difficult in the NFL. Let's start with the game that's getting the most headlines. Green Bay, Kansas City. This didn't make sense initially when Kansas City opened as the favorite. Something was up. I want to know how many sports books knew that Aaron Rodgers wasn't vaccinated and wasn't going to play in this game. Doesn't matter now. I'm seeing the line sitting at 7.5. It's now getting overcompensated. Kansas City was terrible against the Giants. They did not deserve to win that game. I will take the Packers. I like Jordan Love in college. I know people want to prove it to make it the game like Rodgers. You know what? We need you a lot more than we realize. If it's 7.5, I'll take Green Bay. If it gets to 7, I'll pass. But right now, I got it at 7.5. So I'll take the Packers in that game. Let's take the Atlanta Falcons. 5.5. Likely is going to go off at 6. New Orleans got some issues at quarterback. Trevor Siemian, Taysom Hill. Is he going to be healthy? It's a divisional game. You look at those divisional games, you think, all right, you're usually going to get 3 points in a divisional game. Atlanta, not great. Matt Ryan stinks. But everyone's going to have the attention on the Saints with Michael Thomas now out. Give me the Falcons. God, why am I taking bad teams? Because I'm taking Houston in this as well. I'm taking the Houston Texans. I cannot believe Houston is only a 7-point underdog to Miami. When I went through the lines, I like to do this, a little experiment I do. What line am I the furthest off from? It was Houston-Miami. I thought this would be a 4.5, 3-point game. It's going to get up to 7. Houston. You can't be this bad, can you? Are you? Are you really this bad? I'm taking Houston. So I'm taking a backup quarterback in Green Bay, a bad Atlanta team, a terrible Houston team, and I close out with the Buffalo Bills. I'm taking the Bills over Jacksonville. So my theories are way all over the place here. My theory going into this was I was going to stop betting against bad teams. Well, Green Bay is good. Green Bay is winning games. They just got a backup quarterback. So I bet 2 really good teams here in Green Bay and Buffalo to cover for me this week. And I'm betting bad teams in Houston and Atlanta. The only other game I really wanted to switch was the Rams game. I almost took the Rams-Titans, but everyone knows Derrick Henry's out. Can LA really put up that many points? Do I want to toss out the Rams? No. Hooters. Listen to the show, 4-6 on Friday. I might reconsider that Rams-Titans pick. There you go, one more time, though. NFL plays, I like the Texans. I like the Falcons. I like the Bills. And I like the team that is called the Green Bay Packers right now. All right, Goz On The Go, the longest Goz On The Go we've ever had, 44 minutes. Looking forward to seeing all you guys at Hooters on Friday from 4 to 6. Talk more about these topics. Until then, enjoy November. It's officially here.